Good evening to viewers. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. The World Football Governing Body FIFA is said to have uplifted its ban on the Cameroonian Football Federation. This follows the putting in place of the normalization committee that was in Yaoundé Central region of the country today. And also some Malians in Cameroon have expressed uncertainty as to whether they would be able to exercise their civic responsibilities less than 1 week to Mali's presidential elections. Good evening to you viewers. Welcome once again from the weekend. We begin right away here in the economic capital, Douala, where medical officials at a local hospital around Bata, Congo are attending to a 5-year-old kid. That's a baby girl who is said to have been maltreated by her stepmother. Reports say the little princess, as she is called, was inflicted pepper in her private part by the stepmother. Details in the following report with senior reporter Chris Toby.
The 5-year-old princess is said to be coming from afar after the odious act by her father's wife. The accused Mirabel is said to have introduced pepper into the womanhood of little princess before abandoning her in her pains, and it is thanks to the intervention of a neighbor to the family that the 5-year-old was rushed to a local nearby medical center for treatment. Both the wounds on the face and the swells as signs of burns on princess's intimate part make nurses at the Congo Medical Center to believe that she had undergone child maltreatment. But the accused Mirabel denies it all, claiming that she only used the traditional means of treatment by covering her daughter under the loin with boiling grass. And this situation sends the Bamangue Congo neighborhood inhabitants questioning the type of treatment that princess goes through very far away from her biological mother who lives in Gabon.
The ban that was placed on the Cameroonian Football Federation, as we announced in the headlines by FIFA, has reportedly been uplifted following the putting in place of the normalization committee. The 13-man committee would have to revise the text of FECAFOOT and also reorganize elections in the organ. Roland Akong, a Yaoundé-based correspondent, in the following report paints the atmosphere that reigned in Tinga, Yaoundé Central region of the country today.
The Mfundi prefect Jean Silla arrived at the FECAFOOT headquarters first to ensure that there were no dissident groups in the house before the installation of the members of the normalization committee. We did not see John Binde, Esomba Iyenga, and pro-EA supporters. Tombi Aroko Sidiki, the Secretary General of FECAFOOT, was conspicuously present. A FIFA letter empowers him to take care of FECAFOOT and ensure the smooth functioning of the normalization committee. Media houses did not want to miss a second of the ambience at the FECAFOOT building to tell their audiences the story. Security forces were also present for the sake of order. After 45 minutes inside the FECAFOOT conference hall, the 13 members of the normalization committee posed for a group photo to immortalize their installation. They have 9 months to normalize things at FECAFOOT.
Meantime, the 13-man committee, they constitute the president, the first vice president, as well as some 9 members, one representative from CAF and also a FIFA's representative. Let's have their various profiles with Roland Akong once again.
Professor Joseph Owona, the chief normalization officer, is an acclaimed law professor. He managed a similar crisis in 1998 while he was Minister of Sport. Professor Ephraim Guafor, former rector of the University of Yaoundé II and former Minister of Special Duties, Professor Adolphe Minkwache are other renowned law professors in the committee. The committee also has popular football personalities like Michel Kaham, former player of the Indomitable Lions, Pascal Owona Bailong, former team captain of the Lions and former president of FECAFOOT, and Ngassa Hapi, one-time president of the Union Sportive Club of Douala. David Tonye, former Secretary General of the Ministry of Sport, to name these few. Jonathan Array is also a member of the commission. He here speaks of their mission.
The mission is threefold. 1, to review the text of FECAFOOT. 2, to conduct elections, and 3, to do some day-to-day work of FECAFOOT here in the FECAFOOT headquarters.
Then the FIFA delegation led by Primo Kovaru, who witnessed the June 19 controversial election at FECAFOOT, and Prosper Abega, a jurist from CAF. The commission is not gender sensitive as there is no lady in the commission. With the installation of the Normalization Commission, Cameroonians are waiting to see FECAFOOT come out of its impasse.
Roland Nakong, then Yaoundé Central region of the country, presenting the 13-man delegation to pilot the activities of the Cameroonian Football Federation. We talk more on that in the second part of this newscast. Meantime, the nomination papers are arriving, or they have begun arriving, the different ELECAM branches, or arriving from the different ELECAM branches across the country, and also divisional headquarters have begun arriving. The ELECAM headquarters in Yaoundé, they have so far been submitted by the various political parties vying for post in the upcoming municipal and legislative elections. And just to note that in Yaoundé, the ELECAM board members have since over the weekend been meeting to scrutinize the various nominated lists submitted by the various political parties across the country. They have since this morning as well been meeting at the multi-purpose sports complex, where they have to examine the files from the various regions in the country. They have up to the August 1st, 2013, according to the law, to present the parties to run for the twin elections in the country built for the 30th of September 2013. Some 22 students of the University of Buea, as well as the UB administration, would only resume on Thursday this week. The students who appeared before judges of the Buea Court of First Instance today are being charged for destroying property worth some 200 million francs CFA on the campus of the University of Buea, paralyzing lectures on campus for days, and also taking the vice-chancellor of the said institution hostage. The case was adjourned on grounds that the presiding magistrate said the judgment is not yet ready. Nanfak Alex, one of the detained ADEC members, was also present in court today. His charges are still to be known. We surely shall be finding out about the charges levied against the ADEC member that was detained and later released in Buea Southwest region of the country. That is going to be on Thursday, when next the hearing resumes. Meantime, 6 days to the presidential elections in Mali. We are out of Cameroon, but within our community, some Malians here in Cameroon have said that they may not take part in the voting exercise built for the weekend. Their sole concern remains the voters' cards, which have not yet been distributed to them. Details in the following report with Forhansin Chanji.
Live at the Malian community in Makia, Douala, few days to the presidential elections in Mali is normal. Activities are going on smoothly. Children, youth and parents are now speaking one language, politics. Though away from home, Malians in Cameroon are monitoring minute-by-minute details concerning elections in their country. Some have formed camps in support of their candidate, while others simply brandish caps and T-shirts to express their belongings to a certain party. The bad news to some of these Malians is that not all will be voting this Sunday. Some have complained that they will not be able to go to the polls because of lack of the biometric registration cards, called the NINA. Some of them who registered in Mali before traveling to Cameroon are the victims.
On est prêt pour les élections.
We are ready for the elections. We have our NINA cards and we are now doing our campaign. There are some candidates who came to see us here in Cameroon to vote for them. I have my choice. There are people who registered in Mali and today they are in Cameroon. We went to the Consulate General and were told that they could not have their card. At the Consulate General of Mali in Cameroon, preparations are gearing up for this Sunday's exercise. The Deputy Consul General of Mali to Cameroon, Mahamadou Ouedraogo, says all is set for elections this Sunday. All Malians have not had their cards because this year we adopted a registration procedure using the biometric registration. Not all Malians had accessibility, and so not all of them will vote. Official figures indicate that a total of 4,115 Malians resident in Cameroon will take part in the elections in the 4 centers, including Douala, Yaoundé, Garoua, and Petwa. The distribution of the biometric voters registration card stands at 55 to 70%. As the people of Mali go to the polls July 28 to vote in the presidential elections considered crucial for the return to constitutional rule and stability, the poll is intended to end months of political crisis that started when soldiers overthrew President Amadou Toumani Touré. Out of the 28 candidates, front runners include 3 former prime ministers and an ex-finance minister.
For Hansen Chanji, they're ending that report. Now, 19 Catholic youths, that is in Cameroon, would have to represent the country on activities marking the World Youth Day that is built for Brazil this 2013. The debate is over the limited number of Cameroonians delegation or the Cameroonian delegation to take part in the 5 days event. For Hansen Chanji tells us more once again.
19 Cameroonian Catholic youth will be part of a historic World Youth Day in Lampedusa, Brazil, with Pope Francis chairing for the first time. According to Reverend Father Christian Munda Mawel, the 19 youths drawn from Catholic churches in the country will have been 10 times more, as was the case before. The man of God says each time youth attend the occasion, many of them abscond the camp for greener pastures. Reverend Father Christian Munda explains that World Youth Day is an occasion for Catholic youth to share ideas and culture and upgrade their moral and spiritual standards. World Youth Day is built this year for Rio de Janeiro between July 23rd to 28th. It is Pope Francis' first international trip to the world's largest Catholic country. World Youth Day is celebrated every 3 years and is a reminder of the vibrancy and commitment that exists within the Catholic community. The reasons for attending World Youth Day is as diverse as the attendees themselves.
Thanks indeed for Hansen Chanji for that package, bringing us to the end of this segment of the news. Up next is Talking Point. Thank you once again, viewers, for joining us tonight. Our guest tonight is a sports analyst. Good evening to you, Mr. Chechuma Banda, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Following the putting in place of the normalization committee that is made of 13 members, we hear that the ban that was placed on the Cameroonian Football Federation by the World Football Governing Body FIFA has so far been uplifted. What's your immediate reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is that of somebody who's very happy. Happy because the suspension has after all been lifted, and the lifting of the suspension is a logical follow-up to what has been taking place within the past few days or the past few weeks. You know, FIFA suspended Cameroon indefinitely on grounds that the Cameroon government had interfered in football, the management of football activities in the country, or the functioning of FECAFOOT. The government, on its part, tried to fulfill the conditions that on whose grounds FIFA had anchored its argument, and it was but logical that FIFA lifts the ban. And we're happy that the Confederation of African Football reprogrammed 2 crucial matches, a match Cameroon had to play against Gabon as a qualifiers for the Continental or the African Cup of Nations football tournament for amateur players, they call it CHAN, and the match of Coton Sport of Garoua against Siwe of Cote d'Ivoire, accounting for the first group stages of the African Champions League competition. So, as a sports analyst, as a Cameroonian, I'm very, very happy.
So far, the various matches will take place following the ban after the uplift, or after FIFA uplifted the ban.
Yes, even before the FIFA announced the uplifting of the ban today, the CAF had, in anticipation, reprogrammed those matches, and the Intermediate Lions will be playing the coming weekend.
And now, just to find out, what lesson does Cameroon has to draw from the suspension to up to the point where the country finds itself now?
The main lesson is that legislation, be it domestic or international, has to be respected. FIFA has insisted that it does not want interferences in the way it structures and annexed structures like local federations are concerned. And I think that we should learn, because this was about the third time in recent history that Cameroon was being suspended by the worst football governing body. The first time, or at least when Cameroon had a scuffle with FIFA, was in 1998, when the government arrested and detained the president of FECAFOOT at the time, Vincent Onana, on grounds that he was trafficking World Cup tickets. It led to a scuffle between Cameroon and FIFA. Before then, in 1994, FECAFOOT organized its election, and the president at the time who was elected was Maher Daer. And the Minister of Sports at the time, I think, is Benoit Massadou, who is of blessed memory, refused to validate the results of those elections, and FIFA again slammed sanctions on Cameroon. And then this other incident now. Although these three incidents clearly demonstrate to us that when lines are clearly drawn, we should know how to toe them and not to cross over those lines.
I should say the much talked about government interference was as a result of the numerous chaos or unrest that reigned in the Cameroonian Football Federation days to the suspension of the said federation. So now the Cameroonian Football Federation or the Cameroonian government came in maybe to put an end to the problems. They're putting in place now of the normalization committee. Do we see maybe these problems reigning in FECAFOOT coming to an end?
The problem, as we're told by those who were challenging Ian Mohammed and his team, was that they wanted the text of FECAFOOT reviewed. Even though if government supported them, to me, it was wrong, because those who were asking for the review of the text were there when those texts were existing. And since they were reaping benefits from it, they allowed those texts to be there the way they are. Whatever the case, I think if the texts were tailored to suit those who were in FECAFOOT, the caliber of people who have now been appointed to review the text reflect government's ambition. Because Joseph Owona, who is head of this committee, had facilitated the suspension of Cameroon once on grounds that he would prefer that Cameroon be suspended and everything reviewed to improve on the quality of
and
management of football.
And that is the same impression that some sports analysts gave when Cameroon was recently suspended, that it would be better that the Cameroonian Football Federation is suspended so that things can come back to normal in the federation.
Yes, that is for us, the people at the base. But those who were fighting the status quo in FECAFOOT were not fighting because they love football. That I can see and can demonstrate anywhere. They were fighting for their personal interests. But the good thing is, when God wants to act, he uses whoever he wants to use. We are fortunate that God has used them, and now the texts of FECAFOOT are going to be reviewed, hopefully in the light of conferring the management of football in the hands of people who will manage football objectively, level-headedly, and manage football in such a way that Cameroon will assert its leading position on the continent, if not in the world, as far as football playing is concerned.
Let's come back to the 13-man committee. You earlier talked about the former Minister of Youth and Sports.
Yes.
That is the then Ministry of Youth and Sport, which is now the Ministry of Sports and Physical Education.
Yes.
He's the president of the said committee alongside other members. So let's take a look at the various committee members. What's your assessment? Do you think that they would be able to deliver the goods and make sure that the ban or what happened to Cameroon doesn't happen anymore?
You know, to be honest with you, Joseph Owona is one of the most respectable legal minds that we have in this country today. He's somebody who has always demonstrated a high sense of objectivity in some of the things that he does. So these qualities, coupled with the fact that when he was minister in 1998, he had the wish of overhauling the management of Cameroon football, makes it such a way that he is going to take it as a personal challenge to prove the point that he had brought into the focus 15 years ago. So there, I think that we have already a plus with the type of person who is the president. When we look at the other members, Prince Ngasahapi, who had been president of Union Sportive of Douala for so many years, who knows exactly the pains that somebody takes to manage a football team. We take somebody like Carl Michel, who had played football and knows what the rights of the players in the team are supposed to be, or Pascal Ouna Bailong, who had been captain of the national team, as is being said, and president of FECAFOOT. When we look at politics of people like this, we are not forgetting Professor F.M. Gwafo, who is one of the best legal minds that we have in this country, James Mwange Kobila of the University of Douala, Professor Minkwashe, who is a very, 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 very good legal mind. When we put them together and the other members, who cannot but just believe that if all of them work according to their consciences and there are no interferences trying to tell them to tailor text to favor one person or the other, if they work according to their consciences and in the interest of the nation, we're going to have a very, very good text, which, if well implemented, will have good men and women at the helm of the management of Cameroon football.
Talking about having good men and women, may we know the role of the Normalization Committee?
The role of the Normalization Committee is to come up with new text that will govern the activities of the Cameroon Football Federation. Next, they will have to organize elections, latest March 2014, to put in place a new executive, and then they will hand over to that executive now for the purpose of continuity. So that these are the functions of the Normalization Committee. And as you heard in one of your reports, there is a text from the World Football Governing Body, FIFA, that has entrusted the management of day-to-day activities of FECAFOOT to incumbent Secretary General Tombi Aroko Sidiki, who has equally the mission of facilitating the work of this committee.
So now, what happens to the bureau that had been put in place? I'm talking about the president, John Beginning Day, and the other members of the
They cease to exist. John Beginning Day, Somayinga, and all their group, as well as the other group that was headed by Seydou Momo, that had abandoned, or that had Mbela Mukichas. All those two groups, they cease to exist as a matter of logical necessity. The only person who can talk now, as far as football management is concerned, will be either Professor Joseph Owona or Tombi Aroko. Those are the people now whom we'll be hearing till March when they organize elections.
None of the various
they are no more there.
Delegates, the various members.
The other people, they are no more there.
Are not part of.
They are no more there.
And is it not raising any question? Would it not?
It's not supposed to raise any questions, because if two people are fighting and the referee comes and put an end to it and brings in new fighters, the other people leave the stage as a matter of logical necessity. So those people, they cease to exist, because these people, these structures are there now to manage FECAFOOT. Elections are organized.
And before the elections are being organized, we are seeing a serene atmosphere in FECAFOOT from now up to the time that is going to be on March 31st, 2014. We
are expected to see a serene atmosphere, because nobody has any reason to quarrel again. We only have to be patient enough, and if we have suggestions, if we have documents that can help the Professor Jose Owona Commission, we only have to give the documents or suggestions to them silently and allow them to work well. We need a serene atmosphere, because there are a number of challenges coming ahead. Don't forget that in October, Cameroon has a crucial match against Libya in Yaoundé, which we need to pick a draw from in order to qualify for the next and last stage of the eliminations for the 2014 World Cup competition that will take place in Brazil. We need a serene atmosphere, and we need a serene atmosphere because this the under-20 World Cup competition just took place in Turkey, and France won the tournament with 3 Cameroonians who were playing there. When the competition was going on, I met some Cameroonians somewhere. There were 20 of them watching that match, and I asked them a question: qui est l'entraîneur de l'équipe de moins de 20 ans du Cameroun? Nobody could give me the answer. So we focus so much attention on the senior national team and forget about the junior national team. You saw the stage where Ghana went. In the next 2 years, when Ghana will win the Nations Cup, nobody should be surprised because they have a nursery. We don't have a nursery because successive ministers of sports have spent time appointing unqualified people to coach the cadets national team, the junior national team, and all the other categories of national team who have been doing a sloppy job and have been incapable of supplying good players to the major national team. And that's where our problem has come. The problem has not been with the president of FECAFOOT being Iya Mohammed or whoever, but with the adequate preparation of the junior national team. For how long have we not been to the Cadet World Cup or Nations Cup? For how long have we not been to the junior national? That's where the preparations begin. Cameroon won the Nations Cup in 1984 because in 1981 somebody prepared a very good team that they took to the Junior World Cup in Australia. 3 years after those players, Bonge Ernest, Njonke Bonaventure, Ole Bertin, Cinco Izam Fede, they were mature. They used them in Cote d'Ivoire and won the Nations Cup. We won in we played the finals in 1986 and won in 1988 because Karl-Heinz Wegan came in 1983-85, went to Njombe, picked Agbo Hans there, picked Omar Mankana from Puma Football Club, Doyokino and Bumbu Emi, they were in Union Wala. He put a good junior national team that played the finals of the Nations Cup. 3 years after Claude Roy came, used them in Egypt in 1986, we played the finals, and in 1988 we won. Each time we win is because we won in 2000 because Ngwe Ekwam had a very good nursery. Mbami Modest, Kiyo Francis, Enoge Edmond, Hamga Enosa, all those crops. Until you have a junior national team, don't dream of having a good senior team in the years that will follow.
So there is need for reorganization
and serenity, and for people to be level-headed when it comes to analyzing and managing football. We should not, because of personal interest, remove our pistolets and be gunning at people because we want to go to FECAFOOT and position ourselves to sell players, position ourselves to manage money and fill our pockets. No, that's not how it's supposed to be.
Thanks indeed, Mr. Chechumabana, for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
The pleasure has been mine, and you are welcome. We're there with the ideas that God has given us to illuminate and animate public debate.
Thanks indeed. And to you viewers, we thank you for having joined us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. We have come to an end, wishing you a wonderful evening in the company of our programs. Good evening once again.